Hello and welcome to this episode of Maintenance with Magnus. Today we're going to look into some simple service and maintenance on the DeviGyro RG40. The DeviGyro RG40 Standard is an ultra-versatile service solution covering a wide range of survey applications. It provides efficient continuous serving for RC, piling and most other in-road survey applications. So today we're going to do a general check of the tool. We're going to do some cleaning and greasing, replacing the O-rings and the battery of the DeviGyro before finally showing how to change between the wheel centralizers and the leaf spring centralizers. First, let's do a general check of the tool. So the first thing I want to check is if the tool is bent. Take up your V-stands like I've done here, and then you mount them or lay up the gyro on the two wheel centralizers and just rotate it. You can also take a bucket or a bottle or anything, just put it next to the gyro and just make sure that you don't have any large discrepancies or large wobble. You will of course have some wobble on the front end because it's a thin shaft, but if you have, say, up to a half centimeter here, that wouldn't matter much. But if you kind of have 5-10 centimeters, that's way too much. So mine's looking good, no damages or nothing's bent. And then I'm just starting on the front shock absorber and just working my way up the tool. So what I do first then on the front shock absorber is just making sure that it's pretty clean, that it's not seized, and just try to compress the spring. So this one is a little bit tight, so you might not be able to compress it much, but you'll at least feel if it's seized or not. Mine's looking good. Then moving up to my wheel centralizers. So the first thing then is just making sure that they're actually mounted the correct way. So you will always want, as you can see on both, you want the brass part to point towards the front shock absorber. This is so that if you pump in your tool and you get to a point of broken, where the drill rod's broken, it will stop the tool. The tool will stop in the drill rods and you'll be able to get it back out. If you flip these, then you might be able to kind of push it past the broken part, but then it will get stuck when you're trying to retrieve it. So make sure that you always have your brass arms pointing towards the front shock absorber. And then just checking your wheels, check that they're spinning properly, make sure that they're not cracked, and also make sure that you have, it's easier to see if I compress them, but just make sure that these wheels aren't on a line, so that you have one short, one medium and one long arm. So they're in a diagonal way. The reason for this is that we don't want all three wheels to hit the rod joints at the same time, because that will kind of cause extra vibrations on the gyro. Then I just want to make sure that my contour nuts are actually working. So you can grab your wrenches from the DeviGyro RG40 kit. Just make sure that they're threading nicely. Also making sure that my springs aren't completely rusted. There are some rust here. That's easily cleaned with a steel brush. And then moving upwards, I just want to check that my tool is mounted the correct way. So when you've gone past your front shock absorber, the front centralizer, you'll have a extension bar. If you have the RG40 Compact, you don't have these extension bars, so then it's just straight onto the pressure barrel. But for the extended version, it's the front shock absorber, centralizer, extension barrel, pressure barrel, rear extension barrel, rear wheel centralizers, and finally the swivel. So mine's mounted the correct way. Then I'm checking my pressure barrel. So I want to check for any damages on the antenna outer tube. This is kind of one of the most critical parts, so if you have any deep marks here, you need to contact your Devico supplier to get it replaced, because if it's wearing through this antenna pin, your DeviGyro will drown. So mine looks pretty good. Then moving up onto the rear extension barrel, not much that can go wrong with this, so looking good. Rear wheel centralizer, I'm doing the same thing, just checking that my brass arms are pointing towards the front shock absorber and that I'm able to compress them and that the counter nuts are spinning, threading nicely. And then the last thing I do is just check my swivel. So it's very simple, just check that you can kind of bend it so that it's not rusted and that it rotates freely. And that's it for the general check. So now we've come to the part where we're going to do some cleaning and greasing of the tool. So for convenience, I'm going to split the tool. So I'm splitting it between the pressure barrel and the extension tube. And I'm making sure I don't drop it to the floor. So the first thing I do is I want to clean and make sure that my front shock absorber is clean. So you can either just disassemble these two parts or disassemble the shock absorber while it's mounted to the rest. Mine's looking pretty clean, but I want to just open it and go do a thorough clean nonetheless. Grab yourself a 5mm Allen key. This is not included in your kit, so you need to bring your own. I just remove everything, check that everything is in good order, and there aren't much dirt in the bullnose. Then just taking myself a wet wipe or some abrasive cloth, whatever you have, just cleaning everything. Also inside the bullnose as well. And then you can just grab yourself some general lubricant oil. Just apply a little amount, small amount, and just apply some oil here. Then you remount it in the opposite order, so the plastic ring first, then the spring. And as you can see, there's a flat surface on this side, well, not on this. So just make sure that this flat surface aligns with the groove in the shock absorber. And then just remount your screw. Now my front shock absorber is clean. The next thing is the front wheel centralizer. So I'm just making sure that my threads or that my contour nuts, tightening nuts are threading nicely. And then just moving my spring back so I can see if there's much corrosion here. So there's some corrosion, but then I can just grab myself a steel brush and just brush off any surface corrosion. So then I grab myself some paper and just some general lubricant oil or rust protection oil if you have that, and just spray on them a little bit. And then I'm checking my wheels, so just first of all making sure that everything moves, then wiping off my wheels. Just grab a steel brush and wipe off any excess dirt that's either ground up here or the arms. And then you go with your general lubricant oil, just oil up every wheel and the surface between the two arms. Just squeeze a little bit and spin the wheels to kind of spread the oil, and then just take a paper towel and wipe off the excess oil. And then I'm checking my extension barrel. You can wipe off this if it's dirty, and then the last thing on this half is I'm just checking that my lead lens is clean. And if it's not, just grab a wet wipe and just remove any grime inside. So you might be tempted to use a screwdriver and scratch out dirt, but that's not too clever, so just avoid that. Okay, that's it for the front half, and then moving over to the back half. So I'm just checking my thread here and just taking a copper or a soft brittle, relatively thin brittle steel brush, and just brushing off any excess, any metal that lies here. And then I'm just running through the same process on this rear wheel housing. Checking my spring and then cleaning off any dirt from there and rust, and then applying some oil. And then just on the same on the wheels, just clean them off, brush off any dirt, and then grab yourself some oil and oil it up. And then you brush off the rest with your paper towel. And then on the swivel, just bend it and apply some grease on the surfaces to avoid it from rusting. And then every now and then you have a grease nipple here, so just fill the swivel up with grease until grease comes out here. And yeah, that concludes our cleaning. Simple as that. So the third thing we're going to do is we're going to replace the O-rings and the battery. So I've split my tool in half just for convenience, but you can also replace the battery with the full length assembled. I would then advise you to also utilize your third set of V-stands just to kind of get the weight on different places. So grab your wrenches from your kit and just open it. So make sure when you're unscrewing this that you kind of support the rest of the tool so that you don't put all the weight on the gyro itself. As you can see, the gyro comes out with it. This is also something to be aware of. Sometimes the damper may come out with the gyro. So just remove it and put it back in before you lose it. First, we're just checking the O-rings. So I'm just grabbing myself some wet wipes and just cleaning off the O-ring flats and the threads. So I'm also just doing a quick check of the threads while I'm at it. And the same on the inside here. And the O-ring flats, just wipe it off and make sure that you don't have any large dents or burrs here. Remove the O-rings and then you go into your DeviGyro running gear kit and grab the bag of spare O-rings. And grab 2 of them. And then before I mount the O-rings, I just do another cleaning and just making sure that I don't have any dirt or something in the O-ring grooves. And just gently mounting the first O-ring. And the second O-ring. And then grab yourself some O-ring grease and just apply a decent amount of O-ring grease. And then we're ready to replace the battery. So to replace the battery, just grab your gyro and unscrew the battery cap. This should have been hand tightened only, so you should be able to unscrew it pretty easily. You need to remove the gyro from the running gear before you start unscrewing the battery cap. So put your gyro aside and take out your old battery. These are CR123A batteries, mostly used for just photo cameras, so you should be able to source these locally. They're not rechargeable. Then grab your new battery. You can see there's a plus sign here. And that should point upwards, so just you have your plus pole pointing towards your gyro. And then you remount your gyro, hand tighten only, and then you insert your gyro back into your running gear. So you can see it's important that it lands properly. There is an antenna pin inside, so you need to rotate the gyro. But what I do is I insert it, and then I gently rotate it while gently pushing it in that direction. So it will eventually click into place. So you can see, just rotate slowly until it slips into place. And then you remount your pressure barrel cap. And then just tighten it up. There we are, new O-rings and new batteries. Let's change between wheel centralizers and bowstrings. You might need this when if you want to survey an open hole. So the process is the same on both the latest version and the first version of the RG40. So I'm going to change it just on the latest version. So the first thing I do is I dismount my swivel. And then I'm also dismounting my extension bar. And then I take my 4mm Allen key from the kit, and there's an Allen screw here. So just unscrew that set screw, and then you can remove this part, and then the tightening nuts, and then the spring. And then we're going to do the same here, so just open the set screw on the other part. And unscrew this part. So what we want to do now is simply to remove the screws, cap screws. If you do have a Allen key with a circular side, it's easier to use that. But you can also use the one attached in the kit. And then you just remove the 3 screws, and be careful because there are wheel bolts here that might fall out. So all 3 screws removed, and then I'm just removing my wheel bolts. They should fall out pretty easily. And then I remove this part. And finally open the last set screw, and then I remove the shaft. And then I just do the same. I remove the 3 screws, holding these. And removing the wheel bolts and arms. And then I'm setting the arms aside. One thing to notice is that these arms have a different length, and I've set them up the way they should be. So the idea is that they kind of go in a stepping motion, so they don't hit the splices or threads in the drill string at the same time. Okay, we're ready to mount the parts on the new shaft. So the first thing I do is I'm mounting my leaf springs. So what I like to do is mount the leaf springs first on one of the holders. So the idea is that the caps or heads of the cap screws should point towards the drill string. And then I remount my screws. And then I'm taking the one that has the set screw in it. You can see on the one side of the shaft there's a flat area, so I position it so that the set screw is right above the flat area. And then I just rotate the shaft a little bit, tightening it while tightening the set screw, making sure it lands decently. Then we take the other holder, mount it on, and then just threading the leaf springs in. So these might be a little bit tight, but that's mainly due to some slight rotations in the leaf springs. And then I'm mounting my wheel bolts. So just giving a small kind of push on the leaf spring will ease the mounting quite a lot when you're trying to kind of get the wheel bolts to hit their holes and hit their targets. So I like to mount 2 of them, then mount the first screw, because when you're rotating it, they might fall out, which is a little bit annoying. And then I'm mounting my last wheel bolt and the last 2 screws. And then you mount the spring so that it falls into the groove. And then you mount your first nut so that the groove here fits towards the spring. And then you mount your counter nut so that the 2 flat parts meet. Now I'd like to just tighten them up a bit. And then you mount your female thread adapter until it lands, and then you tighten the set screw. And then the same for the male adapter. And then if you, like me, get a little gap here, just loosen the set screw a little bit, and then it will launch into place, and then retighten it. And then you simply remount your swivel and your extension bar. And then just mount on the rest of the parts. And then you do the same for the other centralizer, and then when you're ready to go serving in an open hole. So now I'm also going to show you how to change back from the leaf spring centralizers over to the wheel centralizers. So we kind of do the same, just in an opposite way. So dismount your swivel, and then your extension barrel. Then open the set screw on the male adapter so that you can screw that off. And then you do the same on the other side, on the female thread adapter. Just open the set screw. This one needs to be unscrewed a little bit more since it's mounted on the flat surface. Then you unscrew the two nuts, tightening nuts. Remove the spring, and then you can start by unscrewing the screws holding the wheel bolts. So I like to remove all three. And then just push out the wheel bolts. Then you unscrew the set screw until you're able to easily remove the shaft. Then open up the screws holding the three final wheel bolts and just remove the bolts and the leaf springs. And then remove the final bolts. And then when going back, you take the shorter shaft again and your wheel holders. So what's important here is actually the direction of the wheel. So now you have one holder with a set screw and one without. So we want to grab the one with the set screw and mount, let's see, you want to mount the brass part on the one with the set screws. And then mount it so that the numbers or the black rubber part points upwards. And it doesn't matter in what order you're mounting these. They're all different. If you're doing this on the old version, it does matter which direction you're mounting, because one of these or two of these are identical. So just make sure that on one side you have the arms that says S, L and M, just so you don't have SSM. Then remount the screws securing the wheel bolts. And then just tighten the screws. Then you mount this one on the shaft, on the side where you have a flat area. Just tighten the set screw. Now this should leave you with the steel part of the arms towards the longest threaded area. So just mount your second holder, and then you want to insert your wheel bolts. Like this, as I like to insert 2 of them and then mount one of the screws just to avoid them from slipping out. And then mount the last final wheel bolt and then the last screws. Then mount your spring, your first nut, so that the flat area points away from the spring, and the second nut so that they're laying flat area by flat area, and then the female thread adapter, and then tighten the set screw. And then the male thread adapter. And then tightening the set screw. And the same here, if you get a small opening here, just unscrew the set screw on the wheel holders, push it upwards and then fasten it again. This will increase the the strength of the assembly. And that's it. And now you can see they are short, medium and long. And the same on this one, short, medium and long arms, which as you can see makes the wheels hit their line a little bit helix. And that's how you place it back. So after that, just mount your swivel and your extension tube and you're ready to go serving in-rod again. There we are. That's it for this episode of Maintenance with Magnus. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact your local Devico supplier or Devico directly at our website. And remember, preventive maintenance is key to extending equipment life, ultimately saving you both time and money.